So near, but oh, so far. So close, but oh, so long. A championship week of championship play. For the Redskins and Broncos, it's down to Judgment Day. They were not even supposed to play this year in the NFL, but the strike gave them another chance. Now they're going to the Super Bowl. These lucky Redskin replacements are the subject of this week's cover story. This NFL great passed the Giants to 3 championships. These days, Charlie Connolly lives a good old life, as you will see in this week's Where Are They Now? Joining us on Inside Interview will be Washington's head coach Joe Gibbs and Denver linebacker Jim Ryan to discuss Sunday's championships and their upcoming Super Bowl matchup.
And now, Inside the NFL with your hosts, Len Dawson and Nick Bonaconti.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are now down to the final 2. It's going to be the Denver Broncos against the Washington Redskins in Super Bowl 22. Nick, last week, some very exciting conference championship games on the field. Now, off the field, a lot of activity, including a good friend of ours, Tom Flores, resigning as the head coach of the Los Angeles Raiders. Tom has done a terrific job leading the Raiders to 2 Super Bowl championships. The big question now is, who is Al Davis going to hire as a new head football coach?
Well, I think the secret is only that it hasn't been made public, but everybody's talking about the fact that Al Davis is going to break new ground and name a black as the first black head football coach in the NFL. It's going to be Dennis Green. Dennis Green was the head coach at Northwestern for 5 years. He's now serving under Bill Walsh with the 49ers. Believe me, those are terrific credentials.
I'll tell you, is it not ironic? He's taken the heat off of Pete Rozelle. Those two have been fighting for a lot of years, particularly in the courtroom. Now, with Al Davis hiring a black head football coach, he and Pete are going to be good friends, particularly offensively, because the Raiders really do need an offensive coach, and I think it's about time. And it's about time we talked about those conference championship games. The Cleveland-Denver game was a dandy. I thought last year when John Elway led the Denver Broncos on that 98-yard drive they called the drive, that was the ultimate. This year, it wasn't just John Elway, but Bernie Kosar and the Cleveland Browns. I thought it was a tremendous football game. Unfortunately, somebody had to lose, and unfortunately, it was a fumble that made the difference in that ball game.
I think the Washington-Minnesota game was just a little bit different than that other game. I think it was a little bit more predictable. You know, Washington's defensive line, they had to carry the load. Darrell Green had to really shut out Anthony Carter. He didn't do that, but he really contained him. And the other thing was that Minnesota was on a roll. And believe me, you had to get them to start rolling uphill and not downhill. The Washington defensive line did something to Minnesota that Minnesota had done to the New Orleans Saints and San Francisco 49ers. That was beat them on the offensive line. You know, Wade Wilson early in the game found out that he would not have a real cushion going in at halftime. And he also found out that what happened the week before doesn't necessarily happen the next week.
While a pair of heroic combatants of yesteryear appeared as just 2 more faces in the crowd, one would-be hero of the present cut a more striking pose. During last Sunday's NFC Championship, the Redskins' Dexter Manley and company taught Viking quarterback Wade Wilson the reality of combat. Yesterday's hero often winds up tomorrow's casualty. Though Wilson managed to rise again, his playoff magic performed its own vanishing act as 6 first-half sacks, including one by safety Clarence Vaughn, derailed a runaway Viking offense. The Redskins wasted no time offensively when during their opening drive, a play-action reverse led Viking pursuit in the wrong direction, allowing wide receiver Ricky Sanders a sizable gain. Three plays later, quarterback Doug Williams launched his trademark spiral into the arms of running back Kelvin Bryant for a 7-0 lead. A second view of the 42-yard scoring play revealed excellent pass protection that gave Williams ample time for his release. Another key to the play's success was the mismatch in coverage that forced Viking linebacker Jesse Solomon to stay one-on-one with a much faster Bryant, unsuccessfully. Despite the promise of their early touchdown, the Redskins subsequently blew several scoring opportunities, missing 2 field goals and having one very catchable touchdown pass dropped by the former All-Pro wide receiver Gary Clark. Fortunate to trail only by 7, late in the half, the Vikings finally mustered an offense when tight end Steve Jordan stole away a potential interception for a big 36-yard gain. Soon after, Wilson found a wide-open Leo Lewis for the tying score. Lewis's score capped a swift 4-play, 71-yard drive that compensated for nearly an entire half of offensive futility. Now, with the score tied at 7, the fate of both teams, a quest that began a long 6 months ago, would be decided in the final 30 minutes of play.
Most people thought that this game would be a high-scoring affair, but instead it turned out to be a brutal defensive struggle. Neither offense could find the key to the defensive game plans of the teams they played. With us right now is a man who I think is one of the great coaches in the National Football League. He's the winningest active football coach in the NFL. He's going to his 3rd Super Bowl. He's the head coach of the Washington Redskins, Joe Gibbs. Joe, remember last year you worked with us during the playoffs, and I'm sure you don't miss this year.
This is a better deal, guys, on this end, believe me. I'd rather be over here. You know, the bad thing about this, last year I was telling everybody how to go to the Super Bowl. Now I got to do it. I don't know how.
Coach, I want to ask you about your quarterback, Doug Williams. In that ball game, Doug did not have a particularly good day statistically. Did you have at any time in your mind to replace him with Jay Schrader?
I think anytime you have 2 good football players and one struggling, you give that some thought. But I never seriously got to the point where I was ready to make that decision. And even though Doug struggled in that game, he led 2 big drives in there and threw no interceptions. And I could kind of see it looks a little different to the coach on the sideline than it does the fan, too. I knew some of the things and why he threw the ball away. And so we were struggling, and Doug was struggling, but I never really got to the point where I said I would make a change.
Joe, your team was able to do something that others could not do in the playoffs, and that is contain the quarterback of Minnesota, Wade Wilson. What was your game plan going in to curtail his running?
He had hurt us, Lynn, in the game up there that we played just 3 weeks before this, and, you know, with the running. And I tell you, we took a little different philosophy. I know a lot of people worry the ends and say, hey, don't get so far upfield. But we kind of just said to our guys, if we start that, we're going to wind up playing cautious. We said, hey, you go. The only thing we were cautious of, if we started getting past him to the point where we felt like it was just going to be a strong upfield rush, we told our guys, if you felt